Hey guys, Hailey Lain aka Key Black here with another episode of Off the Cuff. This one is a special episode coming to you from Anime Matsuri 2023 in the Artist Alley at the Calais Works Artist booth. I am here with Jess and Monpian once again.
Hello!
And they just finished up a hyper-successful panel yesterday called Yu-Gi-Oh! Kazuki Takahashi's Historically Accurate Fan Fiction. You guys remember me talking about that in the last couple of episodes of Off the Cuff when I was drawing Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff and talking about my experience with it. And it's that's kind of a topic that I wanted to cover again because just last night we came off the panel. It was fantastic. Everybody loved it. They were turning people away at the door. We were just in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Mood, and Jess recommends we watch the Japanese version of Dark Side of Dimensions.
Egyptian Dragon Jets.
That is the name of the file. I had never actually seen the original Japanese version of it. I remember watching Dark Side of Dimensions when it came out in English, which of course
I'm sorry.
Listen, I grew up with English Yu-Gi-Oh! Already, so...
We love you, Dan Green, but no.
I did at least appreciate the Kaiba jokes that fire whoever designed that water bottle. Kaiba Corp products shouldn't break that easily. But the Japanese version, needless to say, was very different.
Oh yes. So basically, if you watched it in English, you probably got a very different story from what actually was being told, and the entire reason that I even have an original copy of the Japanese version of Dark Side of Dimensions is Monpian tipped me off to it and said, Jess, you're never gonna guess who just came out of retirement to make a movie. And it was Kazuki Takahashi himself. he actually produced this film. Yep. and did the writing for it. I don't think he was even properly credited. They said, oh yeah, he's the creator, but these other two wrote it. I was like, no. Takahashi wrote this. And the story is fantastic because he basically goes, you know what? Yeah, I did the manga as much as my way as I could, but the anime screwed up the ending.
You don't have Kaiba there.
So yeah, it was hilarious because the panel was amazing. I was blown away at how many people showed up. Not only did we hit the room capacity, which was only 100, there was a line out the door of people waiting to get in. They weren't allowed in until someone else left. And I think the final count by the end of the night was over 250 people.
Yep.
And we'd set the record for that room, so they're saying, oh yeah, you're gonna get a bigger room if you come here next year. It's like, oh great. But of course, we're high off of Yu-Gi-Oh! We're also high off of the fact that everyone else seems to still love this show.
We've had people coming by the table today just to talk more about what the topic of the panel was yesterday.
It's been great because then it's like, hey, can you go into more about Bakura? What do you think of him? It's like, oh, the pretty boy that replaced Shoddy? Sure.
Speaking of Shoddy, who comes back in Dark Side of Dimensions in a strange way?
Yeah, with the running gag for me, because I actually made a video about this called Why I Like Yu-Gi-Oh! And you can go look at it at my very empty YouTube channel.
I'll have another link in the description. We'll have the YouTube link here.
Yep, YouTube and Odyssey, and it's a video titled Why Do I Like Yu-Gi-Oh! And one of the lines that we now constantly reference is, anyway, back to Shoddy.
That's what Takahashi kept wanting.
He really wanted to tell his story, his Egyptian fan fiction about the fall of the 18th dynasty, and Shueisha Publishing goes, get that turban-wearing Egyptian out of your manga right now.
What was your line in your video? We're not having another Araki.
Yeah, so no more Araki, no more dog killing, no more blowing up mosques. We're tired of getting death threats from Al-Qaeda. But yeah, Shoddy comes back in Dark Side of Dimensions. But honestly, we watched the movie last night, and you could really tell what Takahashi wrote in there, and then what the two co-writers wrote in there. It's basically taking the story of Exodus, because after the fall of the 18th dynasty, it was only a couple of pharaohs after that where you have the story of Exodus takes place. So Takahashi was clearly like, hey, let's use that as a motif. And then, of course, the co-writers come in and go, why don't we just mix in all of the Exodus stuff with a ton of Indian and Hindu belief systems?
No, it's just this vague something else.
Something collective consciousness, something sell more cards.
Here's another pretty boy villain who looks identical to Merrick, but with blue hair this time.
And irony of ironies, they took out Shoddy, and they took out what he was originally, doing in the chapters, the first few chapters of Yu-Gi-Oh, and they replaced him with the Aigami character, who is doing exactly what Shoddy was doing
they had a guy
in previous
named
chapters.
Shoddy, who is ostensibly Shoddy, but not Shoddy. It's so funny because you guys were just talking about like what Shoddy was doing in the original volumes of the manga.
Oh my God, you're collecting Ka in young children.
Because one of them might have been the pharaohs, maybe.
So that's a little sinister.
But like the way that he's like portrayed in the movies, is oh, he's such a nice guy.
He's saving the orphan.
Oh God, it's like you do realize this is the same guy who just appears out of nowhere to kill the two people who just dug up the tomb.
And yeah, later chapters, one of my favorite bits is, again, Takahashi is not allowed to put Egypt in there, so he sneaks it in whenever he can. And there's this fantastic, basically a reference to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where Shoddy puts the Millennium Ring on some poor random guy, and fire shoots out of his face.
Yeah, I remember that scene. Yes, because that is very different from what happened in Dark Side of Dimensions.
and it's the same lines. It's the ring tests, the tests people, and he has the same line in Dark Side of Dimensions, but it's all sad. It's like, the ring will test you. It's like, okay, all right, I can see what Takahashi wrote, and then probably storyboarded out, because he did do storyboards for a lot of this, and then I can see the co-writers for Shueisha Publishing and Konami going, we are not associating our cards with the Temple of Doom Kali Ma scene. You are not doing that to us. So instead they basically had Aigami, mimicking a lot of what Shoddy was doing, or at least inferred to be doing in the manga before they, got him out of there. And hilariously, you can kind of see what the original story might have been, which is, okay, this Aigami character is all about Shoddy. He's like, Shoddy, he saved us.
Shin-sama.
Shin-sama, he's the one who saved us from horrible lives when we were being mistreated by this guy. And you see the scene, and it's like, that's not what Shoddy does. He doesn't walk in like Jesus and just save the unfortunates.
He walks in like the judgment of death.
So I can basically just I can visualize it, Aigami has all these wonderful memories of Shoddy, wonderful memories of this guy who delivered him from a pretty rough situation, but then the Pharaoh, or rather Yugi without the Pharaoh there, because the whole plot is the Pharaoh's gone, boy.
He's been gone.
Yeah, he's gone. So Yugi's like, are we talking about the same Shoddy? And then Agami's like, well, what do you mean? It's like, well, I met a Shoddy, but he tried to kill my friends. He killed one of the guys who worked with another friend of mine who worked with my grandfather, and then he tried to kill me. And it's like, that can't be Shoddy. There's no way. So yeah, of course, are we talking about the same Shoddy? And Aigami would of course be like, well, that can't be the same Shoddy. Shoddy's a kind-hearted, wonderful person who was horribly murdered by that evil ring, which also felt very shoehorned, by the way.
Yes.
But yeah, you get a sense of what Takahashi likely wrote for this, and then what was twisted, because Konami's like, we are not going to associate a orphan stealing, soul decimating, bald guy with our card game, who's one of the more titular visual aspects is Seto Kaiba, PS5 himself.
Oh my God. But it was so funny too, because you could tell the only parts of the movie that the people who were animating it really, really, really enjoyed and really cared about were Yugi, Atem, and Kaiba. That was pretty much it. All the love went into the animation of their scenes.
And then, of course, when Big Bad Guy came out, I think his frames went down to 8.
They kept doing the same shots. It was always a close-up on the eye, it would do something weird and Merrick-like, and then it would zoom out and he would have 3 frames of settle, and that was it.
But yeah, I mean, I just... every time I watch that movie, I just go, bless you, Takahashi. You're trying so hard. You're trying so hard to get your story out. But every time, whatever he writes, which is more towards the horror, the thriller, the historical fiction, and then card games come in.
Well, on that note, I think this is actually a good place to cut this episode off. Thank you guys so much for listening and for watching, and for Jess and Monpian, thank you for joining as well, although Monpian is manning most of the table at the moment.
Thank you.
I had a good listen.
Thank you, Monpian.
Thank you, Monpian. All right, thank you guys again. See you in the next one.